Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una. So, alhamdulillah, this is actually our first seminar online and on-site for Mihrab Institute. And it's a quick introduction of what we're trying to get out of the Institute in general. So, as we're aware, when it comes to any sort of education system, right, be it just school, K to 12, or you have, then you have what you call post-secondary, be it college, university, you have 4-year programs, 6-year programs, 2-year programs, but the whole purpose behind that is to make it organized. And that you have an idea that, you know what, once I complete this much, I've completed this much, and these are the skills I've learned, these are the books I've finished, and these are the new abilities I've acquired. So when it comes to an institute, that's really what it is as well. When it comes to Islamic knowledge in general, it's very vast, right? If a person were to just look at, the books of tafsir, right? Quran, as we know, the book of Allah, we can only imagine how many commentaries there are, how many authors have wrote hundreds of books each. So if a person wanted to learn tafsir, for example, where would he go to? Where would he start? And to what level would he progress? So that's the whole purpose behind this institute, is to make a structured program where an individual, regardless of what responsibilities they may have of school, work, home, anything that they cannot give that full time. For example, we give time to our school, we give time to our work, 9 to 5, because we know what we're getting out of it and we know it's something we have to do. When it comes to Islamic knowledge or anything extra, which we call it, that's something where we have a hard time dedicating those multiple hours during the week. So our goal with this, inshallah, is to create a program, be it a 6-week course, be it a program that will last a couple years, but anything that we can do on our end to provide a structured course book when it comes to books and skills and abilities that a person, regardless of what responsibilities they may have, they can accomplish those, inshallah. So, just gonna make sure we're set up over here on Facebook. Alright, so as you can see in front of your screens, we have the Journey to the Hereafter seminar notes. You have the QR codes in front of you that you can download the ebook yourself if you want to use that and take your own notes. For our viewers on Facebook, you should have a link in the description of this video. If you don't have that, I'll actually post it right now in the comment section as well here. So you can download the ebook through that link and follow along as we go with the entire seminar, inshallah. So if you can open up the ebook, and as you can see here, on the second page we do have an agenda, right? So we plan to start our session 1 in about, whenever we get started with this and we finish up our introduction here. So the session 1 will last approximately an hour or so. Right? If we get done before that, that's great. Around 11:30 we'll have a break and we have something for refreshments. If they show up, then great. If not, then I'm sorry. Then we're going to get started with our session number 2, and then we finish that off by 12:15 to 12:30, and then we'll leave the floor and the remaining of the time for questions and answers, inshallah. So the first question that we need to address ourselves is that, why are we here, right? It's a Sunday morning. I'm sure you would rather be either sleeping or have other responsibilities or other things that you may be doing to take care of your time and your weekend. But the whole purpose behind this is because we understand how essential the hereafter is. We understand how essential it is to not only believe in the hereafter, that there is a life after this world. That 60, 70, 80 years, whatever we live, is not enough. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very clear in the Quran and in Hadith that there is something that we need to expect after we leave from this world as well. Right? That we will have to stand from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will look at all our deeds from start to finish. and judge us accordingly and give us our final home according to the deeds that we do in this world, right? And Islam is not the only religion that talks about afterlife, right? We know very well the Christians, they believe in this. The Jews, they believe in this. They believe in a life after death. They also believe that there is a hell, there is a heaven. The good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell, right? Very straightforward. Even other religions, such as the Hindus and other types of religion, they believe that there is some sort of life after death, although it's not paradise and it's not hell. Right? They may believe that there is some sort of reincarnation, that a people will come back in a different form, in a different status, in a different form, or even an animal at this next point in time. But for some point, and to some extent, there is a life after they leave this world. However, when it comes to Islam, there is no religion that goes into the amount of depth that Islam does. Right? Not only do we know that there's a life after death, but we also know exactly what stages there will be. We know exactly what to expect. We know the exact questions Allah will ask us. We know the descriptions of what we are to expect in terms of the scenes, the conditions of the people. When it comes to heaven and hell, we know that what type of conversations people will be having there, what food they'll be eating. Of course, it's up to our imagination of exactly how it will be, because as the Prophet ﷺ says, that Jannah is ma la ayn ra'at, wa la udrun sami'at, wa la khatara ala qalbi bashar. It's something that the eye has not seen, the ear has not heard, and the heart can only imagine what it is. Right? So that's, although we have some sort of effect, some sort of basis of to expect what we get, but exact definition, of course, we won't know until we get there. So now we move on to what is the purpose of our seminar. Right? Well, what are we trying to achieve from here? And in a nutshell, it's basically to understand and prepare ourselves for the day which is inevitable. Death is something which every single faith, every single person believes in. You could be an atheist, you can be whatever, you can even deny God altogether and die on that, but you know that, you know what, I still have to die. So since we know death is inevitable, we know that will come, so why not prepare ourselves for that? And most importantly, what comes after death? Right? What comes after death is more important than death itself. Right? Because every person dies. But what happens after that, we all differ over there. So that's really the purpose of the seminar, to understand that, listen, this is going to happen, so we might as well prepare ourselves for it. And the goals that we want to achieve from the seminar is, number one, to understand that life after death is the most decisive factor when it comes to our final abode. Right? To accept this very solid point in our heart, that belief in life after death is the most decisive factor. A person can believe in Allah. He can believe in the Prophet ﷺ as the last and final messenger. He can praise 5 daily salah. He can give his zakat every single year, give all the charity in the world, but he denies that, you know what, there's no paradise, there's no hell. There's no judgment, there's nothing like that. This person is not a believer. He can say whatever he wants. I'm a Muslim, I'm a believer, this and that. But in the eyes of Islamic court, for example, in the eyes of Allah, this person is not a believer. Right? So this is to what extent the importance of belief in the life after death really is. Right? And this is really the whole point of seminar, is to not only understand all the different stages that happen, but the more we learn about something, the more it sits in our heart. The more we learn about something, the more it sits in our heart. That, for that reason, Prophet says that the people on the day of judgment who will be the most closest to me are who? Not the people who, for example, pray a lot. Of course, that's a great deed. The people who do different types of worships, but that person who follows my sunnah the best. Right? Because the more we follow the sunnah, the more we love the Prophet ﷺ. The more we love the Prophet ﷺ, the closer we'll be to him on the day of judgment. So it's very simple like that. And the second thing we need to understand is to increase our iman through learning about the akhirah. That's our second goal, is that we want to be able to increase our iman, our faith in Allah, our faith in this deen, by learning about the akhirah. Because the question comes that, why do we sin? Of course, we have our desires and all those and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's not ignorance. It's not that I don't know that drinking wine is haram. Right? Every single believer knows that. Right? The 99% you can say they know that, but out of those 99%, how many actually do it? There is quite a few number. Right? It's not that I don't know that, eating non-zabiha meat is haram, but at the end of the day, we slip. But why do we slip in general? I know that, intercourse without wedlock is haram, but people fall into it. Right? Because the reality, it has to do with iman. It has to do with the lack of iman. Aisha anha, she mentions in a hadith, this is Sahih Bukhari, she says that if the first verses of the Quran were, do not drink alcohol. If the first verses of the Quran were, do not drink alcohol, then the people would say that we will never leave alcohol. And she says that if the first verse of the Quran was, do not have, sexual intercourse outside of wedlock, then the people say, no, we're going to do that. Because why? They lacked iman at that time. And we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He revealed this religion, and when the Prophet propagated it, the first thing was not, don't do these things. The first thing was not pray salah. It was building our iman. It was building belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was building belief in the hereafter. So all the verses of the Quran that we see, from the time that the Quran was revealed in Mecca, they were all about these small little things. That have faith in Allah, that there are angels, that there is a life after death, that you will die, and that this is your Prophet ﷺ, he's the last and final messenger. But when it came to drinking alcohol and wine and those type of things that they're haram, they came much later in Islam. Much later in Islam. We see that in the US, in 1930s, they had a law where they banned alcohol. They banned it all together, 100%. Right? Why? Not because of Islam, but they know all the bad effects of it, all the evil it causes within society, what it makes people do, how many people, get into accidents, domestic abuse, and so on and so forth. No one needs to understand this, no one needs to research this to understand alcohol is bad for you. Right? But of course, desires kick in, I'll take a little bit, and that little bit turns into, whatever happens. So in the 1930s, they banned it altogether. It's not going to happen. They spent millions of dollars to make this a law. Right? They paid law enforcement extra. They had a whole separate, committee within the enforcement to make sure that this law gets abided by. And the people follow this. In 4 years worth of time, millions of dollars were spent. Thousands of people were jailed. Hundreds of people were killed because they weren't following this law, and then they ended up taking up arms. Police came in, they had to take them down. But at the end of the day, after 4 years, what happened? They brought it back. They couldn't do it. It's impossible. Right? The people at that time, it's a law, fine, we understand, but that doesn't stop people from making their own alcohol at home. That doesn't stop people to having it on the black market and selling it and so on. And when people were making their own alcohol at that time, it wasn't pure. The amount of diseases that were spread in the States during those 4 year span was incomparable from like the century before that. Even though healthcare at that time was still great, medicine was still progressing. But the amount of evil those homemade alcohol was causing was more than what the markets were selling. So they stopped altogether, brought it back. And look at the time of the Sahabats anhum. During the time of the Sahabats anhum, when the ayah came, right, that alcohol is now forbidden, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even says that there is some good in it. Right? There is some good in it, but the evil outweighs the good. It is said that the streets were flowing with wine. People had barrels, they had crates, they had, everything they can with wine. They couldn't live without it either, the Arabs at that time. They had to have it every single meal and every single gathering. But right when the ayah was revealed, they kicked every single, whatever they had outside of their houses. The streets were just flowing with wine. Why? Because they had that belief. They didn't need law enforcement. They didn't need millions of dollars to make that a law. They didn't need people to go to jail because their belief had already built up to a level where the ayah came and they stopped it. To the extent that it said that some Sahaba even had cups right by their lips. A companion comes to their house that an ayah was revealed that alcohol is not forbidden. They dropped it right then and there. And so this is only because they have built up that belief where they were able to follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is why this is our second goal, is that by learning about the hereafter, we build our iman, and the more we build our iman, the stronger we'll be when it comes to just being everyday Muslims and following all the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be it what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do, inshallah. Another thing to mention over here when it comes to our iman itself is that the Sahabats anhum, comparing them to ourselves. At the end of the day, we always want to compare ourselves to the best of people. Right? The Prophet says that when it comes to the worldly life, look at the people below you. Right? Look at the people who have less than you. This way you will increase in gratitude and you won't be, ungrateful. Right? You won't want more. But when it comes to the deen, when it comes to your iman and your faith, look at the people above you who have a higher iman. So we always want to compare ourselves with the Sahaba. So Ali radiallahu anhu, he says that if Jannah was shown to me, Right? If Jannah was shown to me, it's not that I would want it more. And if hellfire was shown to me, it's not that I would fear it more. Because they have built such a belief system within their hearts is that Jannah, paradise, and hell, it's there. But why do we do what we do? It's for Allah. Why do we do what we do? Is because we love Allah and we know that He is our true Lord. Right? So that's again coming up when it comes to our iman and believing in these things. Now, so, as we know very well, the only way to reach paradise, the only way to get our deeds judged is through death. Right? Death is that one decisive factor that we know is going to happen, and that is the passageway we have to pass in order to get to the next stage. We see that once some Bedouins came to Prophet ﷺ, villagers, right? They didn't have much knowledge about Islam, they were just very simple people. They came to the Prophet ﷺ and they asked, when is the day of judgment? Right? Very simple question. So the Prophet ﷺ, he looks at a young boy that was in their group. And he tells him that if he lives, right, then he will not grow old before he sees your last hour coming to you. He will not grow old, but by the time he does grow old, your day of judgment is going to be starting. Right? Meaning that right when a person passes away, his day of judgment has already started. He can't do any more deeds anymore, right? He can't pray more salah. He can't fast anymore. He can't give more charity. So the mere fact that his deeds have come to an end means what? His day of judgment has already started. This is for that reason that the scholars, they call death to be a qiyamatul sughra, the small type of qiyamah, the small day of judgment. And unfortunately, we live in this world with the perception that we'll live in it forever. And we live in this world with the perception that we're going to live in it forever. But as the Prophet ﷺ tells us, is that kun fi dunya ka'anna ghariba wa abru sabil. That you need to live in this world as if you're a stranger or a traveler. Because if we live like that, then we know we're only travelers in this world. And this travel that we're in, this journey that we're in, will come to an end. When we're going to Banff, Jasper, wherever it may be, we're going for 3 days. Right? We're going to 5 days. We're going for a week. We know we have a limit in our head. We know we're not going to stay in Banff or the Fairmont or whatever it is for our entire lives. So when we're going for that 1 week or those 3 days or that 5 days, we're going to take food as much as we need. Right? If we're eating outside, we know we're not going to be having lavish food. No, we'll suffice on, Subway. We can't even eat the tuna anymore, but the veggie Subway, right? Or you're going to go to Tim's for breakfast, right? Small little things just to get by because we know it's only 3 days, I can survive. When it comes to our clothes, we're not going to bring, 4 or 5 suitcases, right? Our entire wardrobe. No, only enough to suffice for those 3 days. So we know that our journey will come to an end and we're going to come back home one day or another. So Prophet ﷺ is giving us advice to that make sure that we live our lives knowing that this travel, knowing that this journey will come to an end. Right? And that is, of course, our journey ends with what? With death. And we need to ask ourselves that what is death to begin with? What happens to us when, a person leaves this world, right? Their soul leaves their body. What's happening at that situation? So we need to understand that death is not, pure annihilation. It's not the end of everything when it comes to us. Is the end of our deeds correct? Is the end of what we own here correct? If a person owned all its property, they're gone now. If a person was married, that person, their spouses are not married to them anymore. So those things do come to an end, but we find that our soul still has some sort of connection with us. The soul still has a small connection when it comes to the body as well. Right? And if you want to understand this point better, we can compare it to sleep. Sleep, as we know, the Prophet calls it the sister of death. Right? It's a sister of death. And the reason behind that is because when we are asleep, our souls actually leave our bodies and they go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they go into this realm, we're going to touch upon this later as well, called the barzakh, which is the realm of souls. And over there, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if He wants to return this soul or not. If Allah wills, He wants this person to live longer, He wants this person to live another day, Allah allows this soul to go back to its body. If it does, then this person wakes up the next day. If Allah wants that this person stays in this realm, the realm of souls, the barzakh as we call it, then this person, as we know, dies in their sleep. How many people do we know die in their sleep? They don't have to be sick. They don't have to have anything wrong. They don't have to have a critical condition. But that's it. They went to sleep, didn't wake up the next day. No reason whatsoever, right? Doctors can call whatever they want, heart failure, this and that. But main reality is we see from hadith is that no, the soul went to Allah. Allah did not give it permission to return. So this is why we can compare when it comes to death. Sleep is like the sister of death, which is why, of course, every time we go to sleep, we want to read our du'as. We want to make sure that we're in a state of wudu. All these small things will help us that if Allah wills that we do die in our sleep, then at least we're going to Allah with a good heart and we're going to Allah in a pure condition. So this different realm that we're talking about here, this barzakh, right? This is a place where every single soul goes to after it dies. Right? Every single soul goes to this realm of souls called the barzakh when it dies. And it doesn't matter how this person dies. Right? It doesn't matter if this person died a natural death and it was buried, his body was buried. It doesn't matter that if this person drowned in the ocean, body was never found. It doesn't matter if this person's body was cremated, turned into ashes. But at the end of the day, the body is gone, but the soul returns to this realm called the barzakh. Right? It said that the Prophet was once giving this story about someone who came in the past times. He said that there was this one man, and this person, although he was a believer, he did not follow any sort of command whatsoever. He wasn't a practicing Muslim, which we call it today's day. And when he was on his deathbed, he knew his time is up, and he knows his entire life he didn't do anything. Didn't pray, didn't give charity, didn't do what he had to do, lived a life of sin. And he told his sons that I fear dying. And I fear I'm going to meet Allah and Allah's not going to be happy with me. So he gives his last will and he tells his kids that when I die, burn my body and scatter the ashes everywhere. Because I don't want Allah to bring me together and ask me questions because I have nothing else to say. So his sons, they do that. That was his father's last will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, raises him up again. His soul goes to Allah. Allah asks him that, why did you ask your children to do that? What was the reason behind that? You know who I am. You know what power I have. I can bring you together even, if you were eaten by an animal. Right? Allah has the power to do that. Allah can bring us together no matter what way it will be. And that's what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment. Right? Our body, of course, as we know, will decompose. Yet Allah will bring us back. How? Because He has that power to do so. So he responds, he says, Ya Allah, I feared meeting you. I know I didn't live a life of good. I know I didn't live a life following your commands, obeying you, seeking your pleasure. So I was scared to meet you. So I told my kids that, you know what, do this so that I don't have to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved this act so much. The fact that he feared Allah this much, Allah forgave him. Allah forgave all his sins. Right? So we can imagine just having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although a person can go to this extent, but when Allah loves, when Allah forgives, He forgives everything. Right? So that's that when it comes to the barzakh. It's a place where all the souls will reside till the Day of Judgment. When the Day of Judgment comes, then Allah will send these souls back to their bodies for the hisab and for the judgment on its own. Right? And death also, as we know, is called the gift for a believer. It's called a gift for the believer. And the reason behind that is for the main fact that only once you have death can you get the rewards of Allah. Only once you have suffered death, that's when you can meet Allah and Allah can give you all the good that you've done in this world. Only after you have suffered death, then can you go to paradise. Right? So this is why the Sahaba and the Prophet says that death is actually a gift for the believer. And although for our own sakes and our lack of iman, we may fear it, but this is what death is when it comes to a believer. Right? We see that there's this hadith where the Prophet ﷺ mentions that this is actually Thabit bin Bahani rahimahullah, a very pious person. It says that when a person passes away, his family members who have already passed actually surround him in barzakh. Right? Talking again about barzakh, the realm of souls, that these people, when he passes away, his family members come together in this realm of souls and they ask him that, how is this person doing? How's that person doing? Right? And they get joy knowing that this person is reunited with them. So we see that even in this realm of souls, there is some sort of interaction that goes on between them as well. Right? Now, when talking about death again and talking about how it is a gift to the believer, you see the Sahabs anhum, They live their lives knowing that they're going to have to suffer this day. They live their lives knowing that they're going to have to meet this, suffer death one day or another. So which is why they live this life for the next. Everything that they did in their lives was knowing that, I'm going to die one day. So this is why we see that they lived a very simple life, right? We know the Muslims weren't always poor. They weren't always wearing raggedy clothes. They had lots of victories. They got lots of spoils of war, had lots of treasures, but their lifestyle never changed. Because they know this stuff means nothing to me. This stuff won't matter to me, once I leave this world. So they live their lives for the next one as well. And when it comes to death, we see that there's a huge difference between the death a Muslim has versus a death a non-Muslim has. Two separate stories altogether, right? And not only is what happens after death itself, but also the process of death is very different between the two. We see that, Abu Hurairah once he asked the Sahaba that he saw a Sahabi going to the marketplace, right? And he asked the Sahaba that, where are you going? He says, the marketplace, do you want anything? And we do that as well. I'm going anyway, and do you want anything? So he says that when you do go, bring me death. So the Sahabi, he's shocked that how can I bring you death? But this is something that he just had on his mind, right? Because these people, again, like I said, their whole lives, they're waiting for that day that comes. Only then can they actually, enjoy the rewards that Allah gives them. This is why the Prophet ﷺ would make this dua that, Allahumma la aisha illa aisha al-akhirah. That, Ya Allah, this life is nothing. The life we live for is the life of the hereafter, right? And when it comes to the believer, right? When a Muslim passes away, it says that the angel of death comes to this person. And it comes in a form that is very beautiful, very appealing, right? And you can only imagine. Say you're at home, a guest visits you, your friend comes over, and he's wearing nice clothes. You're automatically going to feel good about it, right? Maybe he has some good news to give me. Maybe we're going out to eat, he's going to treat me. Maybe we're going to do something nice, we're going out for fun, whatever it is. But him just wearing nice clothes gives a nice feeling to you. In comparison to him coming in, pajamas and shorts. Right, man, what are you doing over here? Like, what do you want, right? You're just trying to bum around, sleep here, right? So just the person's clothing that he wears has a huge effect on our mood. So it's said that when the angel of death comes to a person, they're wearing very nice clothes, very beautiful clothes, very clean clothes. And this person comes to them and their angel's face is bright, very shining. And it looks as if it's shining like the sun. And they're also carrying a shroud that came straight from Jannah. A shroud that comes from Jannah. And then they come in a large number, not just one angel, but a whole group of angels come. And this whole group of angels surround this person who's about to pass away. They're about to take his soul away. And they do so, and they sit beside this person, and they say that, "Oh, pure and virtuous soul, move towards the forgiveness and the favors of Allah." So already, this person has not even left this world yet, but him just being a believer, they're getting good news for it. So they give this good news that Allah is, you're about to go to your forgiveness, you're about to meet Allah. Then one of the angels takes the soul out of the body, right? And it's saying that the soul leaves the body in a way as water flows. When we drop a cup of water, it flows gently. No stops, no obstacles in between, very smooth. So that's how the soul of the believer will be taken out from the body. When it does so, then all the angels who are surrounding him, they follow this angel. So when angel has his soul, he's going back to the heavens, and all the other of the angels, they follow. And the entire time, when they're going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during this entire time, they're talking about, oh, I can't wait to see what rewards this person gets. Allah is going to give this person this and that. Allah is going to give this person all this forgiveness, His mercy, His favors. So the entire time, giving this soul glad tidings of what they're about to face. And then, when they go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command that this person's name is now written in the book of virtuous people. Right? This person's name is written, that this person died, write this person's name in the book of the people who are guaranteed paradise, one way or another. Right? And then it's said that an angel comes to this person after that, and they ask him, who is your Lord? This person replies, Allah. He's a believer. He lived his entire life with that belief. He says, Allah. Then he asks, what is your deen? He says, my deen is Islam. He says, who was sent to you? Who came to you to guide you? This person replies, the Prophet ﷺ. Then Allah speaks from the heavens saying that my slave has spoken the truth. My slave has spoken the truth. Now spread a heavenly bed for him in his grave. Spread a heavenly bed for him and make him wear the clothes of Jannah as well. Right? So the doors of Jannah for this person have already been opened. He hasn't died, he's died now, but he hasn't done his judgment yet. He hasn't passed the bridge of Sirat, as we're going to discuss in detail. But just knowing that this person was a believer and he lived his life as such, Allah's already giving him all these rewards. Right? In his realm of souls and also in his grave as well. And it is saying that when this person is in their grave, the angels, they spread all their entire grave. They spread their grave so much so that how far as the eye can see. So why? The body at that time can rest in peace. Right? It's not tight. It's not that, there's not enough room to breathe for the soul. Because of course the soul is now going to be sleeping till the day of judgment. Till Allah brings life back into that body, the body's going to rest there with the soul in there as well. But Allah opens the doors and the windows of paradise at that time. So they can see whatever's